Has the undisputed king of action cameras been dethroned? Well, the time has arrived to talk about the DJI Osmo Action. Now, I've only had the Osmo Action for about a week now, and I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity because we've had a ton of rain. Seems like it's rained all the time. The weather's just been terrible. But I wanted to be able to show some of the attributes of the Osmo Action. Now, I'm not going to do an unboxing. I'm not going to do a spec sheet because within the first day of its release, or its official release, all the big YouTubers, they got to actually get on the YouTube, talk about the specs, talk about unboxing, yada, yada, yada. And it's like Devin from Team Supertramp, he's had his Osmo Pocket for almost 3 months. So he's had an opportunity to really play around with the camera and test some different beta firmwares with it. Now, I do have the latest firmware that is loaded onto the DJI Osmo Action. And I will say, the thing is heavy. I don't have a weigh scale handy to be able to weigh it, but it's definitely substantially heavier than what the GoPro Hero 7 Black is. And one of the, I know a lot of YouTubers have talked about this, about the front-facing screen on this, but it is fantastic to be able to use a front-facing screen with an action camera, because the majority of action cameras, well, all of them, have the screen on the back. So if you're trying to get a unique shot and you're putting it into a corner somewhere, you can't really see how the shot is framed until after the fact, unless you want to use a phone app to try to do that, but not everybody does. I'm not a big proponent of using apps for action cameras, just because some of them are very glitchy and some of them are a little bit, but this having a front-facing screen is fantastic. I will say that the user interface on the touch screen, very easy, number one, very intuitive, number two. The placement of the microphones, I like it. You've got the one right there on top, and then you've got one right up here by the speaker, but there's another microphone, and the microphone placement's good. I like the way that they did the battery, where it's actually part of the camera's housing, where it's actually seals into it. Everything has been really good about this camera, but before I talk any more about the camera, let's go ahead and check out some side-by-side comparisons of the Osmo Action versus the GoPro Hero 7 Black, because the big thing for me was stabilization. I've seen all these tests about the Osmo Action and its stabilization, the new RockSteady, and I wanted to see if it was really going to be that much better than the Hero 7 Black is. And in my opinion, I think it's better than the Hero 7 Black, but let's get to some video footage. I want to show you some low light footage, do an audio test, some stabilization test, a weird little wonky test that I saw iPhonedo do, and I wanted to kind of test that to see if that was actually the fact. And then we'll talk about some of the pros and some of the cons so far 1 week into having the DJI Osmo Action. Well, a little break from the rain, but it's very windy, very overcast. Let you see right there what it looks like. But I figure I'd do a quick little audio test between the Osmo Pocket, or excuse me, between the Osmo Action and the GoPro Hero 7 Black. So we'll do a quick little audio test. I'll start with the GoPro Hero 7 Black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now with the Osmo Action, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now that we've got the audio test out of the way, I've got this set up on a little bar with both cameras attached to it, and they're actually hard mounted, they're not rubber banded. And I've got it on a little Manfrotto mini tripod, handheld, just so they're both together, so you can get a rough idea of what the audio and what the visuals look like. But I'm going to do a quick little running test. Okay, so I'm going to do a little stabilization test. So I'm going to have it facing me while I'm running towards the gate, and this way you can kind of see everything in the background, if it's moving and how much it's moving in comparison. And then I'll also do a front facing run just to see how it looks stabilization wise. The wind's really kicking up. I think rain's about to hit, so I'm going to do this now. So just make sure I've got this good in my hand. So a quick little run. And just holding this out one-handed just to see how is it doing stabilization wise. And now from behind, so I'm out of shape. So we'll see how the stabilization worked with both of these cameras. All right, finally a little break from the rain. We're going to take a look up just to see how it deals with white balance and exposure value. And now a quick little walk. Now both of these are on a board together, but one thing I want to do is iPhoto had done a review on actually it was 3 cameras: Sony FDR-X 3000, the GoPro Hero 7 Black, and then the Osmo Action. Now what I want to do is I want to reproduce what he did, which was he did a shake. So I'm going to do this as well. I've got the Hero 6 Black on a chesty, and then the Hero 7 Black and the Osmo Action. So I am just moving this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just to see how this RockSteady is, if it actually is RockSteady. All right, GoPro Hero 7 Black, 4K 30 frames per second. And then the Osmo Action, also 4K 30 frames per second. This is just a little indoor low light test. And upstairs here in the game room, it is pretty dark. Now Hyper Smooth is on the GoPro, and the RockSteady is also on the Osmo Action. You're gonna hear my wife and daughter downstairs. So we'll see how this does in low light. Swing back around. And by the way, this is also on just on auto setting, just to get a little rough idea. Okay, what I'm doing now is I had a viewer ask if I could do a decenter-like profile on the Osmo Action and then kind of color grade it. So this is what this scene looks like in its normal color profile. And now this is in decenter-like. So I'm just going to leave this kind of freeze framed right here, holding it in my hand. And then I'm going to do a quick little color grade swipe over the top of it, just so you can see the difference. We'll see how that looks. So as you've seen from the video, the Osmo Action has a tremendous amount of potential. And I say that because DJI has been in the camera business for a long time now. And they've kind of perfected it with all of the drones that they've had. And also when you talk about the DJI Osmo Pocket, they've got the camera thing down. Now, GoPro is, or has been for the longest time, the undisputed king of action cameras. Is this the new king of action cameras? I think it has the possibility of becoming the new king of action cameras. And here are some of the caveats that I put on that it has potential. Now, as we know, DJI Osmo, or DJI, they actually come out with firmware updates right after they release a product, and they continuously improve the products with these firmware updates, just like they have with the Osmo Pocket. Now, the DJI Osmo Action, in my opinion, the audio is still a little bit lacking, kind of like the Pocket was in the beginning. It's not very loud, number one, and it's not very robust. If you remember the DJI Osmo Pocket, when it first got released, its audio was kind of on a tinny side, and it was not very robust, and it wasn't very loud. And they improved that with the firmware update, and I think that that's what they're going to do with the next firmware update, is probably improve the audio a little bit more. The color profile, I wish they had some more color profiles that they could add to it, but I haven't taken this in the water. It's too cold to go swimming. At least the water in the swimming pool is. Now, I do like that they've incorporated this skeleton case to be GoPro compatible with GoPro accessories. There's a thing that is just a little odd to me. When you look at the top of the skeleton case, they thought it out to be able to put the microphone hole for the top microphone right there. But once you close that clasp, it covers up the microphone hole. So maybe they could have designed the clasp a little bit differently, or maybe had like a little notch on the side that would have accommodated the microphone up on top. But you know, it's just kind of nitpicking. I look at the color profile and I go, okay, even in normal mode, it's not as vibrant as the GoPro Hero 7, but in its defense, it does record at 100 megabits per second, which is something to say when you're comparing a GoPro Hero 7 to this. And with the more data that it can compact every second, the more information that there is in that video or photo file. Now, I haven't done any photos with this yet. This is just my first look 1 week into the Osmo Action. That RockSteady, let me tell you, DJI, you've done a great job with the RockSteady image stabilization. Even though it crops in the image a little bit more than what the GoPro Hero 7 does, you've done a great job with it. And I can only say to GoPro, man, your GoPro Hero 8, it better knock it out of the park. You better come up with a hyper smooth 2.0 that has even more internal memory for the stabilization than the 1 gig that it has right now. All in all, yes, form factor close to the GoPro Hero 7, but then that's a good thing, because this will work with a lot of gimbals. So I'm going to do some gimbal testing, and I did not do an HDR comparison to show you what HDR looks like on this yet, because we haven't had a really nice, bright, sunny day. And as everybody knows, with these small little 1/2.3 inch sensors, the more light, the better. Low light performance, since we're going to talk about that, I think that the GoPro Hero 7 beat the Osmo Action in its low light performance, because the Osmo Action, and even though GoPro Hero 7 is still grainy in low light like you saw up in the game room, the Osmo Action had a lot more grain to it. Now keep in mind, both of these were set to auto on the settings, so I'm sure that if I'd went in manually and adjusted the shutter speed and all that I could have gotten a little bit better image out of it. But in auto settings, there's going to be a lot of people. When I say a lot of people, it's going to be majority, 70, maybe 80% of the people that are going to take an action camera. They don't want to fiddle around with a whole lot. They're just wanting to capture some great moments, turn on the camera, hit record, have it on auto, go with the flow. For the other 30%, they're going to take the time to adjust all the settings and then use an ND filter. Now, I have not taken the lens cover off of this. I tried to just twist it off gently to see. That booger's under tight. So tight to where I didn't want to take a pair of pliers to it yet to remove the lens cover. I will get some ND filters and do some more testing with it, but it's just kind of a first look. Do I think that it's a new king of action cameras? Not yet, but man, it's close. It is so close. I think with a couple more tweaks of firmware updates on the Osmo Action, that GoPro is going to have their hands full. They really are. I still love the Osmo Pocket. I think it has its own little niche. And now that we've got an action camera from DJI, it really opens up the world to a ton of competition to that action camera market to get the best of the best of the best. Now, competition's great. Now remember, we've had other companies. We've got THEI, Firefly, SJ Cam, all these other companies that have been competing the last couple of years to try to get into the market share of the GoPro at almost GoPro level quality at a fraction of the price. But a lot of people that once you've had a GoPro, it's like for me, my first cameras were SJ cams. My first camera actually was an SJ 4000. And for the money, I was like, wow, you can't beat it. Yeah, it's not a GoPro, but you know, when you're on a budget, you're on a budget. And then the first time I got a GoPro was the GoPro Hero 5 Black. And I have to admit, I was like, wow, okay, now I see why GoPro is the king, why that is the one that everyone else wants to compete with, because they're at the top of the ladder. DJI, with their first introduction into action cameras, I think that they have done a fantastic job at breaking into that little niche market of action cameras. And I think that, like I said, a couple firmware updates, and I think this thing will be the king of action cameras. Hopefully DJI is working on some firmware updates, because right now it's May. Today is May the 22nd. So GoPro's probably going to announce their Hero 8 model probably September, October. So it gives DJI a couple of months to firm this dude up to where it will still contend with anything that GoPro comes out with. Should GoPro be worried? I think GoPro should be a little bit worried about what the future brings and this competition that they're getting so close. And then you've got like companies like SJ Cam that came out with the SJ9 Strike. Wireless charging, they're supposed to have next level image stabilization. Mine got held up a little bit, so as soon as it gets here, I would love to do a head-to-head comparison between SJ9 and the GoPro Hero 7 Black, and of course the Osmo Action, just to see price for price, money for money. What's your best bet? Which one's going to get you the best amount of quality for the price? And that's where it kind of goes back to competition, because I think competition is good. Competition will raise the bar for the quality that we get, and it'll also lower the price of what we, the consumers, will have to pay for this. So until the next video, I will do some more testing with the Osmo Action. I've got a ton of messages on Facebook. When are you gonna put up something? Come on, put up something. And I didn't want to be quick to put up, first day that I got it, because I wanted to kind of play with it a little bit and test it. And, you know, the weather kind of hampered some of that. Well, the weather hampered a lot of it. But I think all in all, it's something to, if you're thinking about, okay, well, Father's Day's coming up and you want to be able to tell your significant other, hey, Father's Day, this is what I like for Father's Day. This is one of those things that I would definitely put on the list. And if you don't have a GoPro Hero 7 Black, you may want to just hold off a little bit and check out the Osmo Action, especially when they do the next firmware update. And that should probably be within the next 2-3 weeks that they're going to introduce another firmware. But all in all, just a quick first look. I hope you guys have yourself a great day. Comment below. Tell me, what do you think about the Osmo Action? Do you like it? You kind of on the fence about it? Are you a GoPro Hero fan and you'll never try anything else? Or are the other action cameras like SJ Cam, is that something that you're thinking about? Because I'm kind of curious to see what your visual interpretation of this camera was against the GoPro Hero 7. So until the next video, have yourself a great day. Remember, be good to one another, and I will talk to you later. Bye.